Welcome everyone, I'm the captain, Boss Memphis Man. With me as always, my co-host, the president, Lawrence Gervais. We're broadcasting from Calgary and Region 3, Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We would also like to acknowledge these lands, the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. We would also like to say thank you to our First Nation friends, to the Métis settlements, and to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. Also like to give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for the time she allows us to be here and share her bounty. And now, let's get the wheel squeaking. And away we go one more time to get the wheel squeaking. Lawrence, as always, thank you. Thank you to our listeners. Folks, we're starting up another episode of the Squeaky Wheel during a very difficult time in all of our lives, all across our beautiful province, across our nation, across the world during the pandemic. Lawrence, I think we're 40 shows, somewhere over 40 shows, somewhere around 40 shows. You know, each day blends a little bit, but I always appreciate that you're willing to connect with me, connect with the Métis Nation, all of our listeners, all of our friends. And again, always thank you folks for joining on and listening to our shared conversation from a Métis perspective. Lawrence, let's talk a little bit about right now.
In terms of like what's happening in the news or
Okay, good point. We're going to get to, as usual, we'll talk probably sports. We're probably going to talk about some of the other news stories as they were that are bouncing around there. And I always like that, again, your role, very connected at the provincial level, very connected at our regional level. Again, I guess that's why we call you the regional president. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening in our world of the vaccine. Let's talk a little bit about those of us who are getting beat up from, you know, the struggles with being off work. I know I'd like to talk a little bit about the difficulties of India. We'll talk a little bit about BC, but you know, it seems like right now we're at a spot, and where are you when it comes to your thoughts on the confusion about AstraZeneca? Right now we're trying to just give it to anybody because of this fear that had been built up.
oh, for sure. I mean, the blood clots and, you know, out of how many millions that are getting it, you know, that could be a daily average anyways, you know, for blood clots. So people are pretty unsure whether it's derivative of the vaccine itself too, but until those studies are complete, don't put all these fear into the general public. And, you know, I don't want to sit here and point fingers at the media, but sometimes they take that little extra step in what they do, and it created that fear around it. But it's an effective vaccine for COVID. And if you have, more of a fear of getting sick from COVID, well, then get the vaccine, because the chances are very, very minimal for getting a blood clot. So, you know, and certainly it's becoming political now, because now we have some political leaders out there that are, you know, getting the AstraZeneca on purpose because they want to show that, yes, there's no fear there, right? And
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Trudeau finally got his shot.
Yeah, and then of course our MMF president, David Chartrand, and I don't blame them. If there's an opportunity to get it, go get it. And I think our NDP leader, Singh, he got it too. If there's a vaccine available to you as a member of the public, just go get it, no matter what it is.
And it really highlights that I get into these conversations quite often. People, well, which one should I get? You know, we laugh about it, right? Are you getting the fizz? Are you getting the Dern? Are you getting AZ? Whichever one you can get put in your arm at this time is going to help us continue to break this cycle.
Yeah, that's right. And we got to get to that percentage where we get herd immunity, and we're probably only quarter of the way. So it's just everybody just get it at the opportune time, and we'll be okay.
And population, and I think that there's a bit of fallback. People go, well, but our population is so much smaller. Our likelihood of really having transmission is not that big of a deal. I get it. There's the other side of the media. There's the media that says, well, you look at India right now and their population, and they're having, cultural celebrations that traditionally would have 12 million people And now they're having them, but they're still having 600,000 people. And we talk about the variants. Now we talk about double variants. We talk about an India variant, and that's sort of being why, they're shutting down borders, they're shutting down flights. I regardless of the name does maybe just give a reference to where it was suspected that it came from. But either way, there are variants out there. And with India's population right now, we haven't run across this situation. And I'd be curious, I imagine our province is looking at it or monitoring it, but they have run out of oxygen.
Yes.
Families are showing up to the hospital and they're just being turned away, saying there's nothing we can provide for you. We don't have oxygen. We don't have beds. There's not enough space. That, folks, is the fear. That is the real response. You can suggest that, oh, well, I'm an anti-masker, or I don't believe in this, or I don't believe in vaccines. What you will believe is when you show up at the hospital and they say there are no beds for you or anyone else and no oxygen. I hope it doesn't get to that. Let's pray it doesn't get to that, because they are struggling on the other side of the world.
Yeah. And the only way that we're going to actually lift all this is certainly some aspects of lockdown. And I know the government doesn't want to do it. There's certain leaders out there that don't encourage it. Yes, we get that. It affects the economy. But, COVID is brand new into the community and into the world. And a lot of people it's affecting them differently. Whether or not you don't get too sick from the flu doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get super sick from COVID. So you're playing, you're gambling a little bit here, right? So, but also in a sense, if you don't get vaccinated, how are we knowing that you're not going to transfer that to other people? And you get a vaccine, you're going out to restaurants and bars and all that. But there's still an aspect of, you could transmit this to somebody who potentially die. And that's what we're trying to do, is just get vaccinated so that doesn't happen.
And I think a lot of the anger out there is often that with our media is that that's not the message that they're sending. They're just sending a lot of fear. Whereas the repeated, stats should be the ones that say, these are the numbers that are affecting the opportunity for you to get into the hospital should you or a family member need it. But a lot of times they'll just seemingly fearmonger and go, look at the 2 people in all of North America have had a blood clot. That could be you. Yeah, but when you look at the numbers of how many people this may react to, and often, the academics go, 2 people every hour have a blood clot. This is not unusual. I get it that, the science still needs to try and monitor those individuals. And if they, if there's a way for us to prove, but the numbers just don't seem to legitimize an argument that suggests the vaccines are causing this.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, this is what it is. And, we just got to get the percentages up. Once we achieve 80% at least, which will probably not happen till September in Canada, then we'll be able to actually start lifting those restrictions.
Well, in these restrictions, let's look at BC now, right? The lower mainland part really struggling, heavy shutdowns. And I understand, it gives the credence for the government to say, let's close the borders. One of the struggles there is that, my wife who works in healthcare, a lot of her patients come from the interior of BC because this is the closest facility. Now, I don't imagine that they're going to stop, people coming for their required healthcare visits, but it just puts one more burden. But, reasonably, if they're trying to, prevent these border crossings, Ontario, everybody looking at it going, how do we prevent unnecessary travel? Maybe that's it. Maybe there's a reason we should have stopped all interprovincial flights, right? Locking down within health regions. But, I'm definitely not the expert in this, but I certainly have a lot of conversations and try to pay attention in order to share that conversation.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, we just got to get ahead of what we had last year for COVID-19, but these new variants happening in 2021, that's what we have to worry about. So, these are highly transmissible variants, and it's just a matter of, let's just adapt and get our vaccines and lower the numbers at the hospital.
And I'm not suggesting we shouldn't. I think it's fair for people. It's funny, I come across this question a lot. Do you know where that vaccine was made? Do you know, I don't know why I'm trying to make it seem like I'm out of breath, but where was it made? Who was it made by? Where was it delivered? These are questions nobody has ever asked about any medication before this. I'm not saying we shouldn't ask those questions. We've had conversation recently with somebody who was indicating that, one of the vaccine groups doesn't have a great track history of, sharing information or being collegial in the world of their shared knowledge. So why do we trust them now? Well, it's a great argument, but hopefully we are doing more due diligence to assess these groups that are providing their product, trying for us to be more informed. But folks, if you want to be a part of that conversation, get more involved with the government saying, yeah, we're here to support. Let's do some more research. But at this time, those people who are the academics, even Morgan Freeman saying the vaccine, the best vaccine for you is the one you can get in your arm. I'm not saying we should listen to Morgan Freeman for everything, but those doctors, Hinshaw, Tam, Bonnie out in BC, who are saying these are good vaccines, take them.
Yeah, for sure.
Now let's bounce on to something a little more fun, Lawrence. Well, actually, I don't know if NHL is more fun, but or WHL, considering they're struggling through. But a friend of mine is a big hockey coach. He's coaches at the WHL level, and sadly, to report for them, there they are in these little bubbles playing team after team, the same teams. Really, it's like a 4-team cohort, and now they just canceled the playoffs for the WHL. What are we going to see? You look at Vancouver and their difficulties. I wonder, where is the NHL going to head as we slowly try and get through the last of the games for them?
Well, I mean, they pay big money to be in their bubbles, and junior hockey, it's pretty, economically, it's going to be really hard to keep your team in a bubble if you don't have the funds, right? Bettman was, he was on a right path to say, hey, why are we having an NHL season? Because it's just, there's no fans. It's going to hurt the business itself to play these games. But at the same time, what is the general purpose? And, I'm 50% there with what Bettman says. I understand. But yeah, it's going to hurt these junior teams, these university programs, if they can't keep their players in a bubble. And if half the team gets a variant, well, then they can't play 10, 12 games, right? So, yeah, it's, CHL, I think, the OHL were the first to kind of cancel their season. And then, now it's going into the W and everywhere else, I'm sure. Quebec Major, I haven't heard too much from there yet, but.
Yeah, some of them had opened up earlier than others. They had shut their sort of programs down first, but then were able to, I don't want to say find loopholes, but come up with strategies on and work with their provinces saying, yeah, we think we found a great solution. We're opening up. Well, okay, I guess they found a good solution. They've created a reasonable argument for it, and off it goes. There their sport goes. But the challenges that seem to be in BC right now, it'll be interesting to see how it affects the sort of the final big push by the Vancouver Canucks. I honestly haven't watched any American hockey.
Yeah.
If it's not a Canadian hockey game, I'm not watching it. Now, I get it, folks. There's probably a lot of Bruins fans out there and a lot of fans of the Las Vegas Knights. Don't send us any scathing hate mail based on the fact that we didn't mention your team. It's just, for me, I'm finding I'm watching, I tend to watch the Canadian, the baseball. I tend to watch the Raptors. Sure, none of them are really playing at home and they're all missing it. But I do like watching the Canadian hockey that's going on.
Yeah. And we're missing out on some rodeos this summer. I mean, the rodeo season starts in May, and I don't think we're going to see a lot. But in terms of chuck wagons and all that stuff, hopefully that all comes back in a safe manner, and hopefully you have a comfortable, stampede. It's not just about going down there with your mask, getting an ice cream cone, and leaving because there's nothing else to see, right?
Well, that's true, and I know that they're driving hard. They, to create a bit of normalcy and provide our public as some place to go. I agree. If I don't want that, I hope that there's more. You could go have your mini donuts, have an ice cream, look at something that's representative of our wonderful city, of our wonderful province, get a chance and a reason to wear our cowboy hats. I sure do hope that becomes the case.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about kitchen parties, Lawrence.
Sure. Growing up around kitchen parties was always just a time to gather with the family, and that was the most important thing. Well, we live in this COVID situation where we can't really do that. But, I know M&A has done their virtual events. I know that we've looked at them ourselves. There is a high degree of cost. But I think me and Ross and yourself, I'm talking to Ross, but I'm not using you in a third person. But,
no problem.
But me and you kind of took it on ourselves to look at ways to actually get things on television. And the good thing that we did was speak to a film company here in Calgary, located here in Calgary, that has a contract with TELUS TV on demand to do programming there. And we had made a pitch to them that we would do these Métis kitchen parties and do it on television and see where it went. And they were very happy with it. So that's something that we're going to kind of look forward to. Right now, we do have a call for artists that we did put out. And we're looking for jiggers, beaters, tufters, fashion designers, if you're a culinary expert, and especially the musicians, because we know that's about half of the number that's going to come forward. But you will have a place to actually get about 15 or 20 minutes of your talent showcased on television in your area. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Well, and when we first sort of broached the idea of taking the Squeaky Wheel to something that was a little bit broader, and I'm saying this because I want to hit on one other aspect of it, is the idea that we're not excluding anybody within the Métis community. And folks, what I mean by that is we want to hear the story of successful business entrepreneurs, people who are very involved, volunteers, people who are board members, committee members. Again, the artists, represent a strong relationship within our community and bind us. But we want to hear from anybody. So watch for that call to artists, folks, and don't just think of it. It's more of a call to the Métis that we want to hear from all the different groups. You might be a hairstyler, as you can see. I sort of got this sorted out here recently. Who has, really connected within your community, and you want to share that story because you've done something really fun, really exciting. That's the kind of stories, every kind of story we're looking forward to sharing, and really broadening our connection. So, Lawrence, right? You and I talk about this all the time. This won't just be, hey, what's happening in our tight little community. We're expanding all across the province. We're going to be expanding outside of our provinces, looking towards BC, looking towards Saskatchewan, wherever it fits into our programming for now. I'm excited, Lawrence. I think it's so fun. It's the Squeaky Wheel Goes to the Kitchen Party, which I'd like to point out, having two Saskatchewan parents, I was asking them, I said, did you guys use the term kitchen party? Both my parents sort of had indicated, well, they more just called it a party. They felt kitchen party was a little more east, but I know in our recent conversations and with historians, yes, it's definitely a thing. Me, I just seem to always spend most of my time partying in the kitchen. So maybe that's where I always figured out Maybe that's where I figured out that I was Métis.
Well, I mean, I think if you go back to, certainly places like, kitchen parties did happen in Quebec and East and here, and they generally played the fiddle. They couldn't rent large halls to have a big party, so they had it in their houses, right? And they invited the neighborhoods in. And that's where the whole kitchen party comes up. But this is a very Métis specific one, right? So, and we want to pay homage to the past a little bit here, because I feel during COVID, we need that tighter family come together to start speaking about what, when we had these Métis kitchen parties in the past, what developed from it. Well, we were together more. We formed these bonds, these very strong bonds, by having these events, right? So we want to pay homage to it at the same time, but look at the past, present, and the future in the programming too. So, you're going to have a lot of our old timers with their sort of fiddle styles, and you move into more of the present. And then look to the younger generation as the ones that are coming up too, but playing the same fiddle, right? So, and how that's adapted.
And, again, the cliche that if you forget the past, I like to think that we're going to repeat the idea of kitchen parties, but we're also not forgetting the past. We are resubscribing to such a positive, that's the reason we use party, such a positive, engaging cultural approach, but using our newer technology. I'd rather create a big, beautiful stage someplace down in this, at the TELUS Convention Center, and film a huge kitchen party with all sorts of people there. Fortunately, doesn't allow for that right now. Maybe this is at least something we can start doing to give people hope. I know I'm very lucky, Lawrence. You're very kind to jump on when I play Keith's Hootenanny. Folks, you can find that on YouTube. You just type in Keith's Hootenanny. Try a bunch of different spellings of Hootenanny because it might be a bit confusing, but it gave me a reason again to pick up my guitar, get energized, rebuild the spirit, have a reason to tire out these little fingers of mine as I'm blasting up and down the fretboard. But this kitchen party, I'm hoping the variety aspect of it, of connecting the past, present, future of our Métis citizens and that engagement, I'm hoping it gets people energized again. So I'm excited to see you on the Squeaky Wheel. I'm excited to participate in this next project with you, Lawrence. Yeah.
And, I had to make the conscious decision whether this should stay at the region only. And I said, well, no, this should go to the homeland, and we should develop this for everybody, Métis across it. So I'm pretty excited about it. I look forward to the future, and we'll see how this goes, is kitchen parties.
Yes. So folks, watch our show. When we do have a better link, because we're still at a little bit of the infancy, we'll make sure that link's available in any way that Lawrence and I communicate, so that we can share this with you, and then you can share it with your friends, and make sure you get the message out there. Something fun I wanted to share with you, Lawrence, was just this week, as you know, my company does a satellite monitoring, environmental satellite monitoring, and we create solutions and mitigation strategies. And I've always had, just like any young fella, a passion for space, a passion to figure out what's up there. But in my case, we utilize these satellites to look back on Earth. And for me, it was tremendously exciting. On Friday, I got a message from the European Space Agency saying they have accepted my registration for the Memphis group in order to continue to facilitate, do business, and be engaged with the agency that provides the satellites that we use. Now, we do use other satellites, but this was a opportunity. And my next step is hopefully to learn to try and figure out some engagement relationships with the Canadian Space Agency, but it's a little different role that happens here. But I just wanted to say, hey, thanks to the ESA, thanks to the people who, involve this type of environmental protection monitoring and climate change monitoring. Thanks. This has been fun. And Lawrence, it's pretty exciting for me to share that information.
Well, that's interesting. A Métis guy being accepted into the European homeland. I think this is probably a first. But
exactly.
Congratulations, and hopefully you can be accepted here in Canada finally.
Hopefully I can. I don't think this has anything to do with the fact that I was born over there, but I think I've put all the right chips in place. So pretty excited about that. And Lawrence, the last thing I want to talk about, and unless you got something you want to bang about, was here in Calgary recently, because this touches a little home to heart. There was a fire that burned down, well, a while back, they burned down a Dairy Queen on sort of just north of downtown. And the family, they had insurance, sad to see it go. I think they were Korean. And it's a sad tale that their insurance company said, well, yeah, complete loss. We are providing the funding in order to allow you to redevelop. This is what it's going to cost, and have it sort of be the same. And now the city of Calgary is saying, well, and some of the older persons are saying, well, we would rather you build something better, build a better business, build a bigger, better building and business. Yeah, well, they can't afford that.
Yeah.
So they're caught. All of a sudden, it's like, well, we have enough money to do what we have done, what has been here. And now they're saying, well, but no, we don't want that. We want it to be bigger. I don't know the answer. It seems a bit unfortunate that this family this was their backbone, this was what they had been building, and everything burns down. Imagine that loss. And then to be told, yeah, sorry, either build something bigger or go away. I feel for those people. It's not a space that I'm super familiar with, but the idea that when something of yours burns down, sometimes it does just come right back. It seems like these people are caught in a loophole.
Well, if you can invent, you're a fire captain. If you can invent, responding to a big major blaze and putting it out with water and then spraying something else, and then the building comes back to where it was before. If you can invent that, that would be fantastic. But
I see what you're saying. Folks, if any of you have any technology out there that would allow for that at the same time, put Lawrence and Ross's name on there, because we want to try and get whatever percentage we can out of it. But yeah, let's hope that folks, as you continue to share our conversation in our show and listen to our Métis conversation and the fun that we have and the relationship that we have back and forth, make sure you also get involved at the different levels that you feel you can support, whether that's in your community, whether that's at a municipal level, whether that's talking to the community associations or the press associations saying, here's what I believe. Folks, just like you, when it's important to vote, and then you can complain. And if you don't vote, then don't complain. But if you have things you want us to talk about or continue our conversations, thank you to our subscribers. For those of you who jump on, thank you to everybody who emails us, tsw@métis3.org. Find us on our website, métis3.org. And Lawrence, close us out, because I always enjoy our time together.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for being on today. We look forward to all the Squeaky Wheel variety show and kitchen party, however you want to call it. We're looking forward to developing that format and putting it on air.
And it's going to be exciting, folks. You may see me in a shirt and jacket every time here. Who knows how I'm going to look when it comes to the variety show? Yeah. Who knows, folks? Yeah. But you stay tuned. And thank you from all of us here at the Squeaky Wheel. Keep the wheel squeaking.